there are just some things you should be able to rely on. That the sun's going to rise in the east and set in the west. And that everybody's going to hate Notre Dame. It's not the case anymore. And a lot of it has to do with Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman has done essentially 3 different things to make Notre Dame, not even to the point that you hate them, but they're borderline likable. That is a likable football team. That is a likable football program under Marcus Freeman. And there are 3 reasons why. I guess he didn't do 3 things. There are 3 reasons why. The first kind of go hand in hand. 1, Brian Kelly's kind of unlikable. There's a lot to dislike about Brian Kelly, and Marcus Freeman's kind of the exact opposite of that. You couple that with the fact that Marcus Freeman is undeniably handsome. Marcus Freeman's a good-looking dude. And I understand you can have your thoughts on that, but like, believe me, as a fat, ugly guy with a lazy eye that apparently we're just referencing in the comments now, yes, I have a lazy eye. I apologize. Next time, I will keep my head up while I'm tackling somebody as a junior in high school instead of putting my head down and everything that comes with that. I got a lazy eye. I'm fat. I'm ugly. I got a lazy eye. I get it. But believe me, I have experience as a fat, ugly guy with a lazy eye. Life is easier for people who are more attractive. And like, that is nothing is more true than that. Than like, you look at some of the actors or actresses in Hollywood who couldn't act their way out of a paper bag, but by God, are they good to look at, and they have millions of dollars. Marcus Freeman is undeniably handsome. Undeniably handsome. That is a good-looking dude. So you take a good-looking dude who is kind of the antithesis of the former leader of that program, because Brian Kelly there's a lot to dislike about. And so when you come in and you are the opposite of that, it makes you have the opposite reaction of, I'd like to punch that guy in the face. The opposite of, I'd like to punch that guy in the face is, I think I might be rooting for Notre Dame. And so Marcus Freeman that's reason kind of number 1, way number 1, of how Notre Dame has kind of reinvented their reputation just a little bit. The second is, I think, the biggest way that people have then thought, you know what? I get it. He very rarely says the wrong thing. Marcus Freeman is not dude that's on the record as saying stupid things that make you go, huh? When they lost to Marshall, when they lost to Northern Illinois, he doesn't come out and say, that's a team that we should beat 100 times out of 100, but they just got to say, no, he'll say they were better prepared. And I think they were better prepared. They executed their game plan better than we did ours. They beat us fair and square. They deserved it. There are no excuses. I don't know how this continued to happen. He just owns it. And I think that people respect that. People respect honesty, and people appreciate self-awareness. So when you can sit down and say, well, this is everybody else's fault but mine, Marcus Freeman doesn't really play that game. He'll tell you, I screwed this up. Now, eventually, saying I screwed this up, enough people will go, hey, this guy keeps screwing this up. But they haven't for a long time. So that's a really easy way to win people over, is admit when you've made a mistake. And that's not just, by the way, for a college head football coach. That's for everybody, whether it be the highest office in the land or the dude who cleans your office after the business day is over. Admit, when you've done wrong, when you've been wrong, when you haven't been your best. You can admit that, and that's okay. Everybody's better for it. And I think Marcus Freeman is kind of like case in point of that. They don't make excuses when they have lost. They've given credit to Marshall. They've given credit to Northern Illinois when they've had these upset losses that makes everybody in the college football world go, how in the hell did Notre Dame lose to Marshall and Northern Illinois? He's told you, I screwed it up. I did not do what we needed to do. I did not have us prepared and ready to play. They beat us, and we'll learn from it. And you know what? In both of those cases, I think they have learned from it. So that's number 2. And then number 3 is in a transfer portal and NIL era where everybody is plucking players from other programs or throwing bags of money at them. And that's not to say that Notre Dame hasn't been in the transfer portal or hasn't thrown bags of money at people, but that's not how they've really built their roster. They have not built their roster and their identity on a bunch of flash. It has not been an only NIL-based roster construction plan. It isn't just simply, we are willing to overpay for the best players, because that would be the easiest way for Notre Dame, especially in this era, to completely play into the, like, we are the villains, we are the people that you're supposed to hate, is by throwing cash at kids. And they haven't really done that. You don't see the elaborate, over-the-top, ridiculous figures come out of Notre Dame. You don't see somebody say, well, I went to this school, but Notre Dame offered me. You just haven't heard those stories yet, because how they've built their program under Marcus Freeman is about substance and fit. It's been about, we are going to win this way. And in 2024, they've won with physicality and being good defensively and being good enough. They don't necessarily beat the brakes off of anybody, but they do go through, and they're going to push you where you don't want to be pushed. They're going to move people out of the way. Notre Dame has done a really good job of somewhat following kind of that Michigan under Jim Harbaugh blueprint of playing bully ball just a little bit, of, we're not going to throw the ball 40 times a game for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns and have first round NFL draft wide receivers and things like that. They've gotten back to basics. They've played fundamental complementary football. And believe me, I hate the term complementary football, because it generally means our offense isn't very good, but they sure don't score fast enough to put our defense in a tough spot, which is kind of like a bad thing for college football or football in general. Like, the idea that you want your offense to be less good so it'll help out your defense sure feels stupid to me. But I don't make $9 million a year to coach a football team, so what do I know? But they've done it without being kind of the villain that people have expected them to be. They haven't been the ones that have been accused of tampering in the transfer portal. They haven't been the ones that have been accused of just throwing bags with burlap sacks with green dollar signs printed on the outside of them at recruits. Are they in the NIL game? Of course, undeniably they are. But there's not a quicker, more surefire way for Notre Dame to play into that everybody hates us and I don't understand why situation, quite like playing in the transfer portal and throwing money at kids. And they haven't done it. They just haven't been that program yet. They've kind of built their program with and I hate this term too, the quote unquote right way. Marcus Freeman has done a really good job of doing that. And so I think it's turned a program that people loved to hate into kind of looking at like, you know what? I think I kind of like Notre Dame. I think there's a lot to like about this Notre Dame, especially this Notre Dame squad, where you've got a head coach who worked his way up through the rankings, worked his way up through the system. You have a quarterback who transferred over from Duke, but kind of was this unsung underdog that isn't necessarily going to have a bright NFL future. And I think there's some they got a great running back in Jeremiah Love. They have a great defense. I just think there's a lot to like about this Notre Dame squad. And I think that might be one of the more impressive things that Marcus Freeman has done in his tenure, is take a program like Notre Dame that the greater college football world loves to hate on and look at them as kind of like the scrappy upstart underdogs who might find a way to win a national championship. And for him to accomplish that, I think it's maybe one of his most impressive feats in the first couple of years in his tenure in South Bend. Do you like Notre Dame now? Do you at least find them palatable? rather than what they have previously been? Has Marcus Freeman changed that for you? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to read your thoughts. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.